Welcome to the fifth episode on Walkthrough with Bhagavad Gita by Shipra Uppal. This episode is dedicated towards presenting the seventh chapter, Gyan Vijnana Yoga, the knowledge of the absolute truth, and the eighth chapter, Akshar Brahma Yoga, attaining the supreme, in a nutshell. Let us begin with our understanding on the essence of chapter 7, Gyan Vijnana Yoga, the knowledge of the absolute truth. Jai Shri Krishna. In the sixth chapter, Shri Krishna elaborated upon the technique of meditation. But one question was left unanswered. What and whom do we meditate upon? Shri Krishna answers the question in this chapter. He urges us to meditate upon Him and begins speaking to us as God Himself. Chapter number 7 is entitled Towards the Knowledge of the Absolute Krishna. What is Krishna? Who is Krishna? And it describes certain philosophical truths to instill confidence and conviction in the process of Bhakti Yoga. Shloka 7.1, it talks about Shri Bhagavanu Vacha Maya Sakta Manaha Partha Yoga Munjan Madashrayaha Asancham Samgraham Mamaha Yatha Nyaga Yasi Tatshunuhu. This shloka talks about where Shri Krishna is talking to Arjuna and he denotes him by calling him Partha. He says, Hey Partha, how by practicing yoga in full consciousness of me as God will know every aspect of me, free from all the doubts. Verses 1 to 3 talks about the modern thinkers who suggest a notion of proving everything based on the observation. They reject anything that cannot be directly perceived by our senses. Something which is not visible doesn't exist. While this may seem logical, objective, and balanced approach, but it does have certain limitations too. How do you understand those things beyond your immediate perception? I repeat, how do you understand those things beyond your immediate perception? For example, if you wanted to find out what a news channel is showing tonight, the most obvious approach is that you will be checking the TV guide or the menu. Here, you cannot depend on the sensory experience to provide you all the answers. In the same manner, you accept higher authority to open up new opportunities to experience the truth directly. Shri Krishna begins this chapter by stressing the absolute necessity of hearing from spiritual sources to understand universal realities. This is known as descending path of knowledge. Verses 4 to 12 talks the theme of God, that God is everywhere. By hearing from authorized spiritual sources, we all can acquire profound knowledge of the divine as an answer to the commonly asked question that, can you show me where is God? Have you seen God? Shri Krishna cites the analogy of pearls. He gives the example of how pearls are strung upon a thread to create a mala. The beads are perfectly strung and arranged as a necklace, while the thread remains completely invisible. In the same manner, God designs and creates and sustains the entire universe, yet remains invisible to the immature observers. The extreme intricacy and sophistication of the creation, however, naturally indicates the presence of the higher intelligence. Shri Krishna further explains how He is the essence of everything within the creation. Look at the taste of the water, the light of the sun, and the abilities of to do multitasking and everything in man, in human. In the very same way, through the eyes of knowledge, you can learn to see the God everywhere. If we talk about shlokas 13 to 19, so they talk about the exception and rejection on the idea of God. If God can be perceived everywhere and His existence is so strikingly obvious, then why is there still wholesale denial of Him? Why is He not visible? Resisting the forceful compliance, Sri Krishna gifted such individuals with a free will to steer their own journey and decide where to report the faith. Sri Krishna describes the four types of people who reject the idea of God or who reject God due to their preoccupations in the worldly life. They take an excuse that right now we have no interest and time for the spirituality. And the four type of people who do accept God despite of their busyness, despite of their so busy life, and despite of their different degrees of sense of maybe selfish or non-selfish intentions. In conclusion, it is a rare soul, one in 1 lakh souls in this world who is able to approach God free of hidden motives. Unconditionally, there are very few people in the whole world who will try to tread in the path of spirituality to attain the God without any needs, without any motives, without any selfish desires. Such people, they enter into the selfless relationship with God. That level of spirituality, that level of purity, Sri Krishna says, may take thousands of the years and thousands and lakhs, ones in thousands and lakhs, who is able to attain that purity. Verses 20 to 30 discusses about the theme of demigods. Practically speaking, even mere acceptance of God is a favorable achievement. Demigods, like we talk about angels, we talk about archangels, and there are demigods like we talk about Lord Hanuman. He is a demigod. So in this age, this acceptance, however, is not enough. We must gain an accurate and precise understanding. For example, the person who is to be operated in a heart surgery would certainly insist that I want to get operated by an expert surgeon only. I cannot afford the hidden trial. After all, it's a matter of my life and death. Similarly, the people who believe in God, they says that believing in God, just believing is not enough. We should be able to understand the nature and personality, what exactly the wholesome idea about God. So, towards the end of this chapter, Sri Krishna establishes monotheism and distinguishes demigods as a powerful entities who are also in charge of universal affairs, who are in no way, shape, or form equal to God. They are not God. But they are the part of his chain, they are the part of his army. Now, such dangerous misconceptions are cleared up here. Demigods have the potential to impede the spirit towards the pure devotion. That is why people do, they worship the demigods, because finally it is the root, it is a via. Finally, your prayers are also reaching via demigods to the main God. Verse 7.19, 19th verse of this chapter, talks about Bahunam janmanamante jnanavanman parapatyate vasudeva sarvamiti sa mahatma sudurlabha. Shri Krishna says that after many births and deaths, the one who actually attains the knowledge is able to surrender upon me. The one who's actually attains the knowledge about me, who am I. जो मुझे समझता है वही मुझ पे सरेंडर कर पाता है. Knowing me as the cause of all the causes. So, such great soul is very rare to find. बहुत कम लोग होते हैं जो संपूर्ण ज्ञान प्राप्त कर पाते हैं. Now we begin to understand the essence of chapter 8, that is called the Akshar Brahma Yoga. That means attaining the Supreme. In the 7th chapter, Shri Krishna gave a detailed description of Ishvara, that is, the God. And he stressed the importance of recognizing the infinite aspect of God, the supreme element of God. Now, here the 8th chapter took a bit of the diversion from this topic. In the beginning of this chapter, Arjuna raised 7 questions that Shri Krishna answered in this chapter. And the key question was, how does one attain the God after death? Which became the main topic of this chapter. Attaining the God or attaining the Supreme is a sign of sanity and wisdom. And if somebody takes time to contemplate their death, at the time of death, if somebody is able to attain the Supreme. If you see yogis in India, like the sannyasis at the bank of the Ganges, they meditate on Ganges and on sitting on the bank of Ganges, and we all have observed, whosoever has visited Rishikesh and Haridwar, they have observed that the open fire funerals are conducted at the bank of Ganges. Although many would consider it gloomy to contemplate death, but it is nevertheless a real situation that nobody wants to experience, but finally everybody has to face. This is a final destination. The Bhagavad Gita outlines 4 such unavoidable difficulties that one has to go through. There are no choices. The 4 unavoidable difficulties are birth, diseases, old age, and death. We often forget the inevitability of death, and therefore, in chapter 8, it is entitled Attaining the Supreme. Shri Krishna deals with this very subject of death, and whosoever at the end of a life quits his body, remembering the God alone, attains his nature at once, and for this, it totally goes without any doubt. If you see the shlokas from 1 to 4, they deal with the concept of doubt. What is doubt? Doubting is a function of intelligence, and at no point in Bhagavad Gita does Shri Krishna warns Arjuna for asking so many questions. Because why his questions are not ending? Because doubt is still there. His knowledge is not complete. He is not completely, totally believing the idea, so the doubt arises and he asks new questions. On the contrary, Shri Krishna encourages Arjuna to intelligently contemplate all his answers and subsequently make his own decision. This chapter opens with Arjuna's doubt and questions on several spiritual concepts. Shri Krishna concisely answers 7 of Arjuna's 8 questions immediately, and then prepare to answer the final question, that is, how can one attain a spiritual destination at the time of death? See, death is a kind of a time when your senses are gone, when the body is cold, so it is very difficult to experience anything. At that time, when you are consciously thinking of God and taking God's name and taking his visualization, at that time, you are manifesting him. This is a kind of a thing which is very extremely difficult to do. So the rest of this chapter is solely dedicated to answer this particular this particular inquiry only. If you talk about shlokas 5 to 8, they talk about the end of life. Imagine you are going to watch a movie and you meet somebody who just saw that movie and start to narrating the whole movie and ready to tell you the conclusion. So before you will not even like he finished, you will not allow that person to carry on, and you will interject, you will intervene in between, and you will stop him. You say, why are you spoiling my movie? I have spent money to see it. You have seen it good, but please do not narrate. Similarly, for those who engaged in the worldly pursuits, hearing about, contemplating, and accepting the death, that is the end of this the particular lifetime, is not the most inspiring reflection. People don't want to talk about, like, oh, all right, we know we all have to go through it, so why you just discussing about that? It simply spoils the movie of life. We are alive, we want to live in now, we want to experience the present. Why should we think of the end? The end, when will come, we'll experience it. But for a spiritualist, however, the end is not a depressing thought, is something that he would like to avoid. For a spiritualist, end is a concept of life. End discusses and defines the purpose of the next life. For one who is born, death is certain. Somebody who's born is ought to die. But for the one who dies, next birth is also standing round the corner. Shri Krishna explains how a person's thought about death affect their consciousness and aspiration throughout their life. Therefore, our state of mind at the time of death determines our next life. I will just give you a small example that was mentioned in Kathopanishad. There was one king named as Bharata. King Bharat, he was a highly spiritual person and he wanted to attain God at the time of his death. So he decided to went on to jungles to dedicate rest of his life in the yoga. He took a complete sannyasa and he went on and he handed over the throne and the whole kingdom to his brother. Now when he was in jungle meditating on God, one day he saw a small fawn, like the baby deer. He was just, standing next to his mother's body. His mother was dead, and he was just standing there. And King Bharati observed a tiger who was standing behind the bushes. So he was definitely started worrying about the fawn, that who will take care of him. Tiger will eat the mother's body, but he will definitely would not leave him alone. He will take the fawn also. So what he did, he took few of the things with him to warn off the wean of the tiger, and he took the fawn with him. He brought the fawn to the ashram, to where he was staying, and he started taking care of him. He used to meditate, and then he, at the time when he was not meditating, he used to take care of the fawn. By the time his old age arrived and he was about to die, he was really worried about the fawn, that who will take care of him. So now you see, at the time of death, he was thinking of fawn. But why he took the sannyasa? Because he wanted to attain God at the time of death. But here at the time of death, his thoughts were all dedicated to the deer, the fawn. What happens? He died, and the next birth he took a birth of a fawn, because he manifested the birth of a fawn, because he was all focused on the fawn. So thought become things. Now, if you talk about Shloka 9 to 22, they talk about attaining the God. How can we attain the God? The world is a proving ground for the soul. Life is a curriculum, and world is a classroom to bestow the learnings. When somebody becomes frustrated by the chase for success and has lost their taste for the worldly affairs, then here, from this particular point, the spiritual life begins. For such a spiritualist, life is a complex matter. And it is an uncomparable situation where the material world is like a rubber stamp as a constantly chasing place for misery. The spiritual world is distinguished as eternal and all blissful. So, people on different spiritual journeys often dedicate themselves to challenging, demanding things and focus on personal dedication in order to attain the supreme destination. And having attained it, if somebody is able to attain the supreme destination at the time of death, if somebody is able to attain the God, then it is believed that one would never return back to this temporary world of dreams again. Shlokas 23 to 28 talks about the theme of devotion. Since various spiritual practices are discussed in chapter 8, now Shri Krishna concludes this chapter by outlining the most effective process to attain the God. What is the process to attain the God? Is bhakti. Shri Krishna says, Jo mujhe dhyata hai, main bhi usko dhyata hu. The one who thinks of me, I too think of it. Bhakti Yoga is a path of active service to God in a mood of devotion and is described as the highest spiritual route in an age of wild materialism and temptation, coupled with individual weakness and the lack of spiritual aspiration. भक्ति हमें झुकना सिखाती है, भक्ति हमें ध्यान करना सिखाती है, फोकस सिखाती है. Here, a highly practical and powerful spiritual process is required, and through Bhakti Yoga, anybody can experience an incredibly fulfilled spiritual connection with God in a very short span of time. It is not necessary that you need to sit for 5 hours of formality in meditation. Even 5 minutes of pure dhyana, when you are just thinking of the God, that 5 minutes of purity are more than sufficient than 5 hours of formality. So if a person is able to saturate their consciousness in God, then they are assured to attain the supreme destination regardless of all the technicalities and busy schedules that other spiritual processes may stress upon. If you talk about shloka number 28 of chapter 8, it says, Vedeshu yagneshu tapasu chaiva dhaneshu yat punya phalam pradishtham atyeta sarvamidam viditva yogi param sthan mupati chattam. So, this shloka talks about a person who accepts the path of devotional services. Such person doesn't grieve on the result deprived from studying the Vedas or performing sacrifices or undergoing any kind of a strictness and austerities with life and giving charities and pursuing the philosophical and fruitive activities. Such person, they don't grieve, they don't mourn on anything. Simply by performing devotional services, the person attains all of these, and at the end he reaches the supreme abode. And here we complete the summary of chapter 7 and chapter 8. It is important to note that there are many schools of thoughts and perspectives when it comes to the understanding of Bhagavad Gita, and the information presented here nearly scratches the surface of the topic. This podcast presents the microscopic fragment of the broader knowledge of the great epic called Mahabharata or Bhagavad Gita. Connect with me to get the deeper insight on how the shlokas perfectly resonates with the current situation in our lives and how we can apply the teachings of Bhagavad Gita to transform our lives. The first few callers can book a free session on the critical aspect of Bhagavad Gita for a long-term success. शेयर कीजिए अपने experiences, अपनी growth मेरे साथ on Walkthrough with Bhagavad Gita by Shipra Uppal. Thank you. No one's life is perfect. We are all born to experience the imperfections and sufferings.
But imperfections and sufferings are all about learning, no? How would I evolve if I don't suffer? How would I enhance my understanding on life if I don't suffer? How would I educate myself if my imperfections don't bother me? Imagine a life where everything is fair, then what's the learning? Imagine a life where I get what I want, then where is the evolution? Why should I work hard when everything just go my way? Well, growth is a consequence of going against the gravity, and going against the gravity invites sufferings. Is there a formula of utilizing the perspective of pain to grow? Like we say, pain is inevitable but suffering is optional? Yes, there is. And the formula lies in Bhagavad Gita. Well, there are books and scriptures that talks about the pain and offers some solution too. Because every book has detail. But Bhagavad Gita has principles. And these principles can be subjectively applied in every individual life context, in every age. To me, Bhagavad Gita has been my guiding force, as what happens to us as our life experiences is inevitable, but how we respond to it is our choice. Namaskar, I am Shipra Uppal. I am an NLP coach and practitioner, a chakra healer, a voiceover artist, a leadership coach, and the founder of SARATHI Voices, Visuals and Spirituality. Apart from being an entrepreneur, I'm also a soft skill trainer, an author, a researcher, a corporate event management, and a preacher of Bhagavad Gita too. At SARATHI, I conduct NLP sessions blended with spirituality and help people to connect with the supreme element and observe an upliftment in every aspect of their lives. I shall be speaking on this platform. आइए बातों बातों में सारथी के साथ भागवत गीता के आध्यात्म के सार को साझा करें ऑन भागवत गीता, अ वॉक थ्रू फॉर लाइफ विद शिप्रा उप्पल।